Welcome back to A Little Bit of Cheese, your daily bite-sized Wisconsin sports podcast. I'm your host, Cody Tobias, and once again, thank you for being here with us today on Tuesday, September 24th. It's a little bit before 4 o'clock, recording this a little bit later in the day. I got work, I got things going on. Always try my best to get to it when I can, but I'm just going to try to get an episode out every day, and that's the biggest goal here, the consistency on the time. I apologize but that's why we have it recorded where you can listen on Spotify or you can go watch it on YouTube if you'd like, and that's at any time. So even if you come and check it out in the morning, that's great. We love to have you here at any time. So some interesting news coming out regarding Brett Favre. We're going to talk about that in a little bit, but where I want to start today is by previewing the Brewers series as they're going to be taking on Pittsburgh for 3 games. These are the last 6 games for the Brewers in the regular season. The importance of them is pretty staggering. A lot of it is dependent on how well the LA Dodgers and the San Diego Padres and the Philadelphia Phillies all play in this last stretch here, as currently Milwaukee is 4 games back of the Dodgers and 3.5 games back of the Phillies. And then in the Dodgers case, actually, they are just a couple of games ahead of San Diego where it is right now, where the Brewers are pretty much locked into that 3 seed unless those teams find a way to lose 4 games and Milwaukee finds a way to win 4 or 5 of these last 6. So the chances of that happening, as good as those teams are, as good as they've been playing, I'm going to say that the chances are very slim. It's not great. Milwaukee, I think at this point is just, they have things locked up where even if you play real hard, you try to get that 2 seed, which I would say that is essentially a playoff series victory if they're able to get a 2 seed, but as unlikely as it seems right now, and I think Murph is going to take it this way, the main goal here for this last week of the season is just to get things set for that wild card series. Of course, it'd be amazing, incredible to get that 2nd seed and that first round bye, but it's just a little bit out of reach at this point, where I think just getting your rotation and your lineup and your guys ready and healthy so they can go and play a really solid wild card team, because it's looking like it's going to be the Mets, who are currently right now a half game up on Arizona for the 2nd wild card, 2 games up from Atlanta. So it actually could be the Diamondbacks here in this last week. The things are really, really tight here in the National League. In Milwaukee, they're just, I'd say, more lucky than anything that they are that much better than everybody else in their division, where they don't really have to worry about this kind of stuff in the last week of the season. But Milwaukee, it's not locked in who they're going to play or even what seed they're going to have. I would pretty much write them in for the 3 seed, the way that I explained it before. 4 games and 3.5 games in 1 week, that's almost impossible. We have seen it before, but very, very unlikely, especially as good as the Dodgers and as good as the Phillies are. But that wild card series, that could be either the New York Mets, the Arizona Diamondbacks, or the Atlanta Braves. And all of those teams, you can talk about who you'd like to play more. I would say the Atlanta Braves. They're a very, very, very good roster that have dealt with a lot of injuries. Ronald Acuna, who won the National League's Most Valuable Player last year, he's been hurt. Austin Riley, who got MVP votes last year as well, their 3rd baseman, he's been hurt. Ozzie Albies, widely regarded as one of the better second basemen in the National League, he's hurt. Spencer Strider, who's their ace pitcher, he's been hurt. Matt Olson, an anchor at first base, has not been playing to his capabilities. The team, they've gone through a lot of struggles this year. They got their ring back in 2021, so I don't have too much sympathy here for the Atlanta Braves, but that's the team that I would want Milwaukee to play going into that wild card, because Arizona, you just saw them in Milwaukee. That team can flat out hit. Milwaukee is lucky that they were to even squeak out a game in that Sunday game where they were down 8-0 in the 3rd. And miraculously were able to come back and win that one 10-9. Milwaukee got stomped those first two games of the series and started to in the third game. If Milwaukee's offense would have done what we've seen over the course a lot here in the past couple of years, they get down big and they don't come back. And of course, I don't want to put that on this team. This is a very talented team. They're very resilient, but an offense down 8-0, I'd say 99 times out of 100, they're going to sit down. They're not going to win that game. They might make a little bit of a push, but very, very rarely do you ever see a team come back from 8-0. I think that was only the third time in the entire season this year that that's happened. So very rare they're able to do that, but that just goes to show how good of a team Arizona is. I think it might statistically be, at least in some categories, the best offense in Major League Baseball. They have some really good starting pitching at the top there in Zach Gallen. Merrill Kelly is very solid as well. And there's too many other guys with a lot of experience there, at least Major League Baseball experience, that kind of scare me as a Brewers fan. I don't want the Brewers to face Arizona in a 3-game series. For the playoffs, we did that last year. Didn't go well. It was in Milwaukee. It was 2 and done. Arizona beat the Brewers in those 2 games, and that was the rest of the season. Like, that was it. Brewers division champions. It's shaping up where it could possibly be the exact same story, and I think it's best to avoid that at all costs, which is why I'm saying that 2 seed would be that valuable. In all reality, just enjoy the baseball games while they're happening, because who knows how much longer this team's going to play. It really could be only a week and a half from today, and the Milwaukee Brewers season could be over, and it could be in defeat. It could be right after a wild card series, and they could play the Atlanta Braves in a wild card series, and they could lose those 2 games and have their entire season be over. That's just how baseball works. As good as a team can play for 162 games, their season can end in just 2 of those, which you can argue about the playoff format as much as you'd like, but I think where it's nice is it gives these at least small market teams that typically aren't going out and winning the division every year and winning 100 games, it gives them an opportunity to make a march to the World Series like you saw last year with Arizona or with Texas. Like, you can have teams that don't win a lot of games in the regular season just get hot, and it gives teams an opportunity to do that. It creates parity. I think it's good for the sport in that sense, but I think there is more to be said about long-term success over a 162-game season, to be able to reward a team a little bit more than just giving them a 3-game series against a wild card team that probably had to play hot to get into that wild card. And you have to go in and try to beat them. You should be able to. Your record says you should be able to, but that's just not how the game works. So it's beautiful in that sense, but it's also frustrating where you can play. And last year it happened with the Dodgers as well. Like, Dodgers could go in 100 games. They could lose to the New York Mets, who aren't going to win 90. Like, that's how it goes. But it doesn't matter. You see it in the NFL as well. The New York Giants, 2 Super Bowls that they won, those teams went 9-7. They were not good regular season teams. But it's who gets hot at the end, and that's why it's exciting, and that's why we love it, because you don't know what's going to happen. Just beautiful in that sense. Tobias Myers, he's likely to get his last start of the regular season tonight. And this is a matchup against Pittsburgh that has looked favorable for him thus far. He's pitched against them twice, including his Major League debut. And those 2 starts combined, 13 innings pitched, 1 earned run, and 10 strikeouts. So he's been essentially lights out against Pittsburgh. We'll see if he continues that. As this, like I said, this is probably the last one before they get him ready for the playoffs. Maybe they try to squeak in a couple of innings, but I doubt that's what they would want to do. He'll be facing Bailey Falter tonight, who is a left-handed pitcher, who is 8-8 on the season with a 4.15 ERA. Of course, Tobias Myers, 8-6, a 3.05 ERA. Myers' numbers, they just look good. The peripherals don't say they should be that good, but he's continuously done this all year. We keep on expecting a regression, but it doesn't happen. The numbers are still solid. We'll see if he can just have a good, solid start to get himself and the team and the confidence that the team has him all ready for that playoff series. Now, this news is a little bit breaking. I saw it on social media a couple of hours ago, which is where it kind of helps where I'm recording this a little bit later in the day where I'm not missing out on this news. But Brett Favre today during a congressional hearing, which revolved around his scandal where he took a little bit of welfare money to put into his alma mater's volleyball facility. He kind of, not going to say he twisted the story, but he revealed that he has Parkinson's disease. And there's a lot of ethos that was presented in this speech. I'm not going to speak too deeply on it. I watched the video of him revealing this and kind of what he was talking about, but I haven't let it sit with me all that much. I'm going to give you the facts as I know it. So he shared his diagnosis in an appearance before the U.S. House Ways and Means Committee earlier today in a hearing about welfare accountability and reform. Of course, talking about the controversy over the misuse of public welfare funds in Mississippi. The audits had previously revealed that public money intended for needy families was used to pay Favre and to fund projects he favored. Now, all this I'm reading off of the NPR article by Becky Sullivan. So if you want a little bit more information, you can go check that out online. But he said he thought it would help others, and that's how he got the money, and that he was also looking to put the money into this company that was trying to create a drug to help people overcome concussion symptoms. Of course, Favre dealt with, it is stated to be 3 or 4 concussions throughout his NFL career, which now with the research done on concussions after the fact, they said he probably had a lot more, and that's evident now. A 54-year-old man, and Brett Favre, who was literally known as the Iron Man in Green Bay, has been diagnosed with Parkinson's. It's a sad thing, and of course, the controversy in the case throws a lot in here, so I'm not going to throw in too much opinion here. He could be trying, I'm going to say what you could speculate, but he could be using this and putting it in the speech to try to make people sorry for him throughout this case. Of course, he said that he was not aware that these were welfare funds and were intended to go to people that were needy, and at whatever you say about that, it's all a very shady situation in that sense. But of course, Favre is dealing with a lot, so as I think it would, of course, be best for us to just pray for him and that situation, but to fully understand kind of what's going on here within the case of Brett Favre, like what happened, what he did is not condonable. Like, that is just not cool stuff. But see, it's all interesting. It's weird. It's hard to talk about because there's positive, not even positives. Like, we should feel bad that he's having to go through this disease, but then there are other things where you can't really, like you have to fault him for the mistakes that he had made within all of this. But this kind of just opens up the discussion once again, and especially with Tua Tagovailoa. We talked about him last week having his 4th concussion in 5 years. This is the kind of stuff that can happen. Brett Favre is 54 years old. There are 54-year-olds out there that are not grandparents. Like, the 54 is not that old, and now he is dealing with Parkinson's disease, and it's going to affect him for the rest of his life. Like, these are some of the consequences that come with playing the game of football, and these things need to be talked about, especially amongst football players deciding whether they want to go play college football, even if they want to play high school football. Like, it's a discussion that needs to be had because there are dangers that go into it. It's what fighters know before they step into a ring, or boxers, or whatever it may be. There is risk involved with what these players are going out to do, like to entertain others, to go out and try to succeed in a sport. Like, you have to weigh all that with the dangers that come with it as well. And Brett Favre is now dealing with what is believed to have been consequences of his playing career. Parkinson's disease, diagnosed at 54 years old. So we'll pray for him. We'll see how the whole legal case kind of phases out for him here, as there's a lot to be heard yet, a lot to be said, a lot to be decided. But Brett Favre going through a lot on a lot of different fields here. So we'll just pray for him, the best for him, and that things get all settled out the way that they should be. So don't want to end it on a sad note, but that's kind of where it's at today. We're going to end here by looking at what's going on once again tonight. The Brewers will be taking on the Pittsburgh Pirates in game 1 of a 3-game set here. This is going into a final 6-game stretch of the season for the Brewers. I will have that game on tonight, and we'll talk about it tomorrow, and hopefully some other Packers and Badgers and other news, and we'll see what we can get to when we are back tomorrow. But I'm Cody Tobias, your host, and I once again would like to thank you for listening with us once again today. This has been A Little Bit of Cheese, your daily bite-sized Wisconsin sports podcast.